Today's project I have been wanting to do for a while, but I've had so many things going on, I just haven't. So I've got a big old pile full of scrap denim. Blue jeans, I think there's a couple of shirts in here. There's actually a couple beige pairs of pants, and they are all things that have worn out. There's a couple of them in there that I could kind of sew back to, sew a patch on, etc. But they maybe are not fitting right anymore. If they were really fairly good still, I would take them to the Salvation Army, but they're pretty worn in spots and just not really necessarily, well, they would be salvageable if I wanted to take the time to go ahead and repair them and put a patch on, etc. But you can see a couple of them actually have holes in them in various spots. And so what I'm going to do for today's project is actually cut up the denim. I'm going to get rid of the seams. I might take some items like this. You can see I kind of had cut this one previously to use part of it probably for a bag, and so then I'll hold on to a scrap like that just in case I want to make another bag. But that's not really what I'm doing for this project. What I'm going to do is cut out all the seams, cut out all the decorative parts like this, and take all the pieces, the main pieces that I can come up with, like underneath my ruler here, that kind of a piece right there, and actually use it for, I'm going to leave the nice side to the back, and the unfinished side, I'm actually going to take all my fabric scraps and start doing like a crumb quilt on the other side of, on the reverse side of the fabric. And that way I feel like, I'm not sure we could call this a quilt project because there won't actually be any batting or quilt material to it. I'm thinking that the denim will be heavy enough that all I need is to use my fabric strips to crumb quilt. And because I'm gonna quilt them right onto the fabric, I won't have to do any actual quilt, because I'm going to sew them onto the fabric. I won't actually have to do any quilting unless I want to. Unless I want to do some decorative stitching like on the pocket here. And I may actually decide when I'm crumb quilting the fabric on the front, I might actually decide I want some pockets on the front of it. I'm kind of crazy that way. So it's kind of going to be a crazy quilt. So let's get to cutting. So I'm really not going to waste the scrap that's on this either. It's going to go in my bin and it'll get used for stuffing. I'm using kind of an older cutter here. I've got multiple other blades for it, so I should have taken the buttons off of this. I wasn't quite thinking, but I have a 60mm cutter now, but I don't have any blades for it at the moment, so just gonna go ahead and use my old one so I can replace the blade after every couple pairs of pants here, or sharpen it anyhow. I've got a sharpener so I can do that. Probably shaking you around. I don't have to be real straight on this. I'm going to straighten it up as I go along after I get the crumbs on them. So, flip this open. Let's see, what can we get out of here? Not much now that I cut it. Probably just going to get the pocket. Yep, it's going to take a pair of scissors to it. In fact, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors to the arms here. Get them out of the way. Like I said, any of the scrap from this is going to go into my bin, so it's not like it's going straight to the landfill. This was mostly still a good shirt. It didn't fit, and it did have some tears somewhere. So it just gets a second life now. Move those out of the way. Get the pocket out of this. one's going to have to be really close to the pocket. That was because I made a cut too soon. I wasn't thinking what I was doing. Okay, this side. And then this one can be a little bit bigger. In fact, I'll probably just go ahead and take most of this. Can always get cut down later, right? Okay, take the buttons off. Put these in the old button jar. Who knows, they might actually go onto this quilt. Alright, I don't care to get anything out of the back. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's here. Let's see. You can actually get a pretty good square here. And then just cut right underneath the part here. Actually, let's do it this way. Just cut this out and then it'll get it straight. Technically, there's probably still quite a bit of fabric in there that you could use to make patches. Make some smaller patches out of this. I don't think I want to go quite that small, so probably I'm going to rip the actual fabric. I could get my seam ripper, but I think I might come just short of this when I pull it apart anyway. Just cut that off. Alright, there we go. Should be just right. This is where I need a rotating mat. Alright, and then a nice regular square. Alright, let me get a second one here. Maybe. Ooh. I was wondering if I was going to cut that just a little bit too short. And yeah, it's a little bit short, but it'll be alright. It's just a use it up, wear it out quilt. So. This blade's already getting dull. Alright, so a couple blocks there, a couple long pieces. Actually, let's go ahead and cut this one. Cut the seams out of it, I mean. That's one thing you definitely don't, well, you can, some machines can, mine won't handle it very well. So it's best just to cut them out. And I could actually save some if I just, I could do that, yep. I'll save about 1/4 of an inch of it just by taking it right next to the seam. Instead of having the seam folded over and it would cut that part out. Okay. So there's a little one. Here's a big one. And I'm going to go ahead and cut off the buttons and buttonholes. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the buttons first. Okay, and I'm just going to do all the pairs of jeans in a very similar fashion. Cutting out the pockets, cutting out the seams, save the pockets, throw away the seams. Oh, still got to do the arms too. Yeah, just actually, if I had been paying attention, I should have done that along the seam. Oh well. Sometimes you forget things. Save the buttons. Yeah, if I'd have done that along the seam, I'd have more, but not really enough to make it worthwhile, so. Cut this off here, and we'll see what loosens up. Because there was a dart in there. I wanted to take that out. seam out of here. Let's see, I think we can get a full square out of this. Well, maybe we can. Yes, we can. All right, I'm just going to do that then. The grain's going to be off a little bit on these, but it doesn't bother me. Okay. There's probably a few of you out there thinking, why didn't you just fix that shirt up? No. I probably could have a little bit more, but like I said, it's oversized now for that person, so. And it was very worn in the collar. You can't see it on camera, but technically you can fix that, but some things. And actually, I could save a piece of this for a patch for fixing another pair of pants, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in my scrap bin, just because that's where I always look when I need to fix things. So, it's not even really my scrap bin, it's like trimmings. I always look in my trimmings bin just in case there's a big piece in there, which happens quite a bit. Well, not really with regular fabric. I'll cut all that up into smaller scraps. And actually, I might go through this bin in a little later and do 2.5 inch squares. Maybe it'll be part of a future project. Actually, that does all of a sudden I'm thinking that might be kind of neat. All right, I'm going to go through all the beads. Okay, so I won't bore you with all that. All right, I've cut my jeans up. Well, not all of them, just a few, but just enough of them to do a good size backing for this quilt. Again, not necessarily a quilt in the standard format, but what I'm going to do is this is my little scrap bin, and generally I cut down to I would cut these into 2.5 inch squares and then have just what's left. But sometimes I just end up throwing things into the bin and don't get them cut. So like these could be some 2.5 inch squares. So I may go through some of this and cut them down. I may just actually, I think for the purposes of this project, I'm literally just going to sew some things together. I'm going to start with these strips right here. They're very long. These are probably mostly leftover bindings, so I'll iron some of them. And what I'll start to do is actually on the squares here, I've got rectangular this size, and my plan right now is to go ahead and just do strips across and just do rows on this. And then these, I'm actually going to take each block and do, let me show you something like along the line of a diagonal. And so I would just sew this down on here. We'll sew it this way and flip it over, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and have each block with these, start with these long ones, get rid of those by going down the center, and then start adding shorter items out of this stack here in the bag and make my blocks. And so then I will take these blocks and sew them all together in one long strip, and then I'll take these, and I'm not planning on doing a solid piece like this. What I plan to do is something more along the lines of sewing strips out of all the smaller stuff, so I've got multiple colors in each strip, and then I'll sew those on there, and I'll sew all these together, and so it'll be one long panel this size and then one long panel this size. Put the two together, have a nice size quilt. So that's the plan. Let's see how it goes. I'm gonna, like I said, need to go through this just a little bit more here to get my small pieces in one bin and longer pieces in the other. So there's some longer pieces in here that really should be with this stack. Yeah, a lot of these are longer than they seem just because they're folded up. So we'll go through that and get started. For my strip pieces, I am just sewing down my strips in various sizes. I'm going to start this one, actually, it's a 2 3/4 inch square, 2 3/4 inch width. So I'm going to start it 2 3/4 inches in from the end. That's going to give me my 1/4 inch seam, and hopefully put the rest of the 2.5 in. Try not to do any math, but you do have to at least kind of get the first one on in a spot where it's going to flip over and be even with the edge of the jeans. So if I'm a little bit long or a little bit short, it's not going to be a big deal. A tiny bit short, well, I should say a tiny bit short's not too much of a problem. I'll either trim down the jeans, or a tiny bit short, it'll be a scant 1/4 inch seam when I sew the pieces together. But if it's very much of a, if it's very much one way or the other, I'll either cut it off, or I will add another little thin strip to it. And as you can see, not all of my fabric's matched up. This is a scrappy project. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see here, not all of my fabrics were the same length. So I'm just going to kind of cut off the very end of this, and we've hit a very wall. So the bugs are absolutely driving me nuts tonight. It's pretty dark overall in the room, and I'm sitting right next to the light, so they're just all together in here. But that's what happens in October when you've already had a couple cold spells, and now all of a sudden it's 80 degrees again. So hopefully we'll be getting a cold spell here real soon, and they'll all get killed again. Alright, so I just ironed that piece down. So now I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to go ahead and get my next piece of fabric. And give me just a second, I got to pick up something pretty different. Most of these I just been going with whatever fabric was next, but I think for this I want to kind of pick up something different, because I'm getting down toward the end here. So I want it to be really scrappy. So I'm just going to go with this blue one. I really ought to grab a fly swatter. Alright, so I'm just going to line this up with the edge of what I've sewn down already. And go. Get this piece ironed down. Okay, so I'm going to pick a slightly narrower one now. And I don't want to do the yellow, so don't want to do that blue. Let's do a real interesting color here. Colorful. Fly is driving me nuts. I'm going to have to quit here in a minute and go get a swatter. Okay, well, I don't know where it went, but this iron down. Alright, so I got that piece ironed down. Now I probably need to get another fairly good width one. Let's see. Like a really scrappy one here. I'll just line that up with the edge of the other one here. And go. Uh-oh. Getting off of it. Okay. This ironed. Pressed, not ironed. Okay. So, this piece was a little bit different size. The jean piece was a little bit different size. What I had been doing was going in size, so this would have been the smallest one, but it was just enough that I needed to go a little bit bigger. If I had done a small one, I would have had to do another small one, and I didn't want to do that, so just use that. But I got several other pieces done already and just wanted to show you this one. So I showed you the diagonal and the long pieces, the leg pieces on my jeans. I just wanted to do straight. I could have done them diagonal too, but I thought I'd just do them straight. So I've just been sitting here working on my scrappy quilt project. And I just realized that I'm sitting here watching Kate at the Last Homely House working on her scrappy project, which I think it's going to be a quilt, but I haven't quite got there yet. So I'm really interested to see what she ends up with. She's got it titled as A Lovely Way to Use Your Fabric Scraps, a New Challenge. So I'm very curious if this is going to be a quilt. She's done curtains, she's done fabric dyeing, all kinds of things. I love watching her. So, but it was just funny that I'm watching her do a fabric scrap project while I'm doing a fabric scrap project. Anyhow. Still have quite a few vertical rows, or horizontal rows, horizontal rows to get done. Let's see, I probably really don't need to do, I probably only need to do about 2 more. I want it to be fairly nice and long, but I started way high up just in case I decide to do really long. But it does not need to be floor to flip from the floor all the way up to here. Maybe only needs to be this height. So probably 1, maybe 2 more. And I've got squares to add on to the side here, and I'm just kind of trying to lay them out and figure out which design I want to go with. Might twist these around a little bit. With the jeans, these are just a little bit too heavy to just put on my fleece background, so I'm pinning them up here. I think I like that. Do I do it like that? That white one's leading into the gray. That's kind of pretty. I'm getting to work on getting this section sewn together. And then I still have to get this section sewn together. And get them both sewn together. And then I'll have my topper done. But I am wandering around here wondering, how can I still have so many scraps? Chloe's crying? Okay. Okay. Apparently the dogs are crying. They need to come with. We're going away for a little bit here. Anyhow, yeah, how can I still have so many scraps all around? Oh, and breakfast. The good news is this is all the same set, so there'll probably be some hot pads there and different things like that. And then these three right here are their own sets, so I'll be able to make like some bags or something out of those. And then these are just the rest of the scrappiness. So I'll probably do a couple more projects before I decide to start accumulating my scraps again. But yeah, I just can't wait to get this one together. And it'll be a nice, I decided I'm not really going to do an actual quilt with batting in between, etc. I'm just going to sew it all together, and I'm going to go along and actually on the seams here, I'm going to go ahead and serge those down, and yeah, go around. And then when I get it all into one piece, then I'm going to go around the outside, and I think I'll actually do like a decorative stitch around the outside, but I'll show y'all what I come up with. I just thought I'd do a little video of all the scraps that I still got to do. Still got to use. So it's funny, isn't it? Just accumulate so many. And like, I'm not even counting all the ones that are like that. I've got about 3 or 4 jars of that. So, and then over here, all these little kind of things. Some of this will end up just being, I'll probably go through some of this and it'll end up just going into stuffing. Okay, so we've got one scrappy bed cover completed. It's not super wonderful. I didn't do a binding on it. I could have done a binding on it. I might still choose to do a binding on it, but for right now, I'm actually okay with it fraying and having nice frayed all the way around. But I did do a decorative stitch all the way around it just to keep it from fraying too much, and also to keep the fabric down on top of the jeans. So it was just kind of a quick, slightly creative use of some old worn out jeans that are beyond repair at this point. But there were parts of it that weren't. And the legs are usually fine for me. Just a couple areas that tend to wear out, and you try to fix them and patch them and get to the point where you just can't anymore. So I stole the parts that were still good and used them and did a kind of a quilt as you go technique using all my fabric scraps. And I could have done a lot more design wise. I could have made all the patches as diamonds. You know, I might have done the leg patchings that I had in a diagonal as well, but I just wanted to be quick about it. And altogether, I think this project took probably, I didn't really measure the time. I did it a little bit at a time, so but probably about 2 hours tops. Um, yeah, so just wanted to do something quick, using up the scraps, and now I have a summer weight blanket or an extra little thing to add to over my quilt in the wintertime. Sorry, my words tonight. Um, yeah, so nice little summer weight quilt or a bed cover in the wintertime too. And it really is. It kind of feels heavy when I'm standing here holding it up for 10 minutes here. I guess not that long, but while I'm standing here holding it up, it does feel a little weight in my arms, but it's really not that heavy. Heavy enough to be nice, but not as thick and heavy as, say, like I mean, as a quilt with a batting in it. Now you can do quilt tops where you maybe don't even have a batting in it, or you have a really thin batting, and so you can do something like that, and it would still be lightweight. But this was just a nice way of using up my jeans, using up my scraps, and having something colorful to just have an extra weight on in the wintertime, or just having just this on in the summertime. So, all right, well, I hope this encourages you to do something with your scraps. I still have plenty of them left, so I'll probably be doing some hot pads and baskets and all the things that I can think of. And I actually need to make myself a couple little ironing boards, so I might be doing that with some of my scraps. And of course, it's getting to be Christmas time, so Christmas ornaments. Although most of what I have scrappy right now is not necessarily Christmas, but I can always put something together.